1 o'clock to 3 a.m. last night, the entire city was being tagged with graffiti. And what was most shocking to me was just the level of boldness by the rioters. They do not feel threatened. They do not feel like police are going to come in.
Right? I mean, it wasn't enough.
Well,
why isn't, if you're telling me that the, hold on, Grant, if you're telling me that the Los Angeles Police Department, was de-escalating it, then why couldn't they de-escalate it, right? If it was just as
they didn't get a chance, Sean.
Sean,
they didn't get a chance.
The order he signed doesn't just apply to California. It will allow him to go into any state and do the same thing. We're suing him. Do you share that concern, Lauren?
Okay, so I remember very clearly 2020 during the BLM riots. So Trump did nothing. He sat back, he tweeted, law and order, law and order, law and order, as our cities burned to the ground. As people died, a lot of businesses were destroyed, but I remember my hometown, like it was burnt, like the city of Wilmington, Delaware, my home state, it was just completely destroyed. It was burned to the ground. He did nothing.
I'm going to go to you first, Aldo. Let me read out exactly, I'll read out a tweet from the team, kind of giving an overview of what's going on in LA, a place that I still love and I still go there often, but a place that's changed as well. So I'll read out a tweet here, and Aldo, I'd love to get your overview of what's happening on the ground. Downtown LA is now a no-go zone after a third night of immigration protests turning violent. Police declared the area an unlawful assembly. Protesters torched Waymo cars, blocked freeways, and hurled concrete at officers. One rioter has a $50K award on him, a reward for attacking a federal officer and torching government property. LA's mayor and California's governor slamming the feds for escalating. Newsom accused Trump of manufacturing chaos after National Guard deployment and threats to send Marine. Downtown LA, no longer a protest zone, it's under lockdown. Aldo, what's happening on the ground today?
To say that downtown LA is lawless is not an understatement. It's absolutely ridiculous what's happening, and to see LAPD and to see law enforcement stand by when rioters are destroying the city is really disheartening. On Friday, it started at the VA building and the federal building. It was small protests. By Saturday, you saw what happened in Paramount, complete lawlessness there. And then yesterday, Sunday, I mean, it was havoc. People were lighting fires in cars. They were tagging the entire city from when I got there around 1 o'clock to 3 a.m. last night. The entire city was being tagged with graffiti. And what was most shocking to me was just the level of boldness by the rioters. They do not feel threatened. They do not feel like police are going to come in. And it was evident. I mean, what really happened, and this seems to be the MO of LAPD, even as far back as the immigration protests a few months ago, is they kind of set up a perimeter. They create a perimeter where they at least can feel some type of security, and then they wait. They wait for hours and hours and hours until the rioters either move to a different place or they start to lose energy and some of them start going home. And when you see that sort of dwindling, that's when the police will start to make their engagements. I did speak to one law enforcement officer when I was leaving last night around 1 or 2 a.m. And I said, you guys look like you have your hands tied. What's going on? Are you not engaging on purpose? Or are these orders coming from above? And, he kind of gave me a smirk and said, listen, we can defend ourselves in the immediate, but at the end of the day, our orders to engage or not are coming from higher places. And so to me, that was a pretty, clear way of saying that their hands are tied and they aren't able to do much. So when I see things online of people saying, oh, LAPD is cowardice, or, this isn't just restraint, it's them being cowards, you have to understand they are getting their orders from above. But it's pretty hard to see on the ground.
What do you mean? What orders do you think they're getting? What orders? You're getting a bit of echo there, I think, on your end. But can you tell me Aldo? What are these orders you're referring to?
Well, the orders are to not engage. Like I said, I mean, they
Why?
are creating a perimeter and then they're just sitting there. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you, but I mean, I saw for around 2 hours, protesters or rioters were hurling 20, 30-pound rocks 30 feet down from the overpass onto their squad cars, and they were sitting by doing nothing. I mean, the explanation, I don't have an answer for you.
Grant, so that led to Trump, Aldo, thanks for muting. That led to Trump, obviously, deploying the National Guard without getting the permission or the consent from the state. That's the first time this happens since 1965 under Lyndon B. Johnson. Your thoughts, Grant, on these actions?
Well, I think it's an action designed to inflame, and I think from what you heard from Aldo, the LAPD is getting orders not to escalate the situation. And let's be real here. People that want these kind of things to blow up into a violent conflagration are the minority of people protesting, right? And sometimes they're not even the people that are protesting. We saw that during the George Floyd protests. So it's a smart move to de-escalate the situation, let people have their First Amendment right, even if it's not very pretty, but let them say what they have to say instead of.
But the First Amendment right doesn't include torching cars, though.
Be enforced. That should be enforced. And don't think that the police departments are not going to look for people, the isolated individuals that commit violent acts like that. There's surveillance. There's a lot of stuff out there that they're not telling everybody about. They do go out and arrest people that do violent things like that. But the reality here is that sending in the National Guard is an inflammatory move. The LAPD is trying to de-escalate and just calm the situation down. Let them have the protest, end it, and be done. But this is a confrontation politically that Donald Trump wants to fight. And so that's why he's sending in the National Guard and he's ignoring the state and, really not so interested in de-escalation tactics, nor has he ever shown an interest in any kind of de-escalation tactics in the face of any protests. He's almost always invariably escalated it and then used that escalation as a political theater moment.
Sean?
I'm gonna have to disagree. I mean, this has been escalating since before the National Guard showed up. Okay, I mean, you even have articles on Reuters, which is not an outlet that I particularly am fond of, talking about how violent the riots were on June 6th. National Guard didn't arrive till yesterday. Okay, that's 2 full days of riots, of violence that has been, thoroughly reported on. Right. So to kind of make this statement that Donald Trump is trying to fan the flames here, that statement is political. OK, the apolitical statement is the illegal rioting that is going on in Los Angeles is just that. It is illegal. And the only way to stop it is to bring about swift, harsh and severe consequences. OK, I see a lot of people.
Law enforcement instead, like federal law enforcement agents, like FBI agents,
because they were being attacked like ICE. They were being attacked like ICE agents were having rocks, and Customs and Border Patrol were having things thrown at their vehicles, right? I mean, it wasn't enough.
Well,
why isn't, if you're telling me that the Grant, if you're telling me that the Los Angeles Police Department, was de-escalating it, then why couldn't they de-escalate it, right? If it was just as
they didn't get a chance, Sean.
Sean,
they didn't get a chance.
What are you talking about, Lev? They had 2 days.
Hold on a second. What's 2 days? First of all, you're talking about 400 people. You're making it seem like this was riots all over the place. Second of all, it was a 400-person scene. Second of all, you're talking about the Los Angeles Police Department that's used to handling the biggest riots. Don't forget the Rodney King.
So then why couldn't they handle it if it was so small?
They didn't get a chance.
Why couldn't they handle it? They had 48 hours, dude.
So how quickly, guys? Just quick. Stefano, you've been watching this closely. How quickly was the National Guard deployed? And do you think it was deployed too quickly, not giving time?
So hopefully I'm coming in clear. Apologize if I have a connectivity issue. So what I would say is that, first of all, the National Guard, though, right now in its current state, I think it's important to highlight, number one, they've been activated under Title 10. So they've been federalized. Other words, they cannot do law enforcement functions under posse comitatus because that's the reason why you generally want the National Guard activated by the governor, because if they're activated by the governor, then they fall under Title 32, enabling them to do law enforcement functions, i.e. detaining people. Operation Lone Star in Texas for the border is under Greg Abbott. That's why they can detain migrants. There's reasons why governors, when they activate the National Guard, gives them more authorities to operate rather than Title 10. What we've seen the National Guard deployments right now, actually, on the videos we've seen currently, they're actually just operating under what we would consider perimeter security. They're actually armed with normal weapons. They're not being utilized from a crowd control perspective right now. Now, it is important to highlight that under Title 10, the National Guard still can do, and any active duty force deployed can do crowd control in some way, shape, or form. It's basically doing perimeter security with non-lethal means. That is well within the authorities of the National Guard or the Marines to do tear gas and ensuring people don't go into federal buildings. Similar to my personal experience, for example, on the border in 2018, we were authorized to use tear gas if the migrants were rushing the border, right? That does fall within Title 10. They just haven't been utilized in that point. We have not necessarily seen them yet. They're doing that more for perimeter security. They were activated and sent, but they haven't been doing anything where we've seen LAPD and the sheriffs kind of already operating in. So yes, the National Guard is there. They're there to protect federal buildings. But, we actually saw a video today of protesters, with the National Guard there, but peaceful protests and people criticizing the National Guard for being there, but never translated to a level of violence or riots, etc. And so one of the things that you can make an argument on the other side is the deployment of the National Guard can serve as a deterrent. Right. And I think that's something important to highlight as well. Right.
I disagree with you on that. I think
there's multiple ways. I understand.
Grant, he's talking about it could be one way or the other.
There is an escalatory purpose for that, and that's a concern. But at the same time, it also can serve as a deterrence. And really, to be honest, at that point, what I would say is it really is not going to come up to the White House to determine that per se. I mean, they've activated. We've seen U.S. Northern Command, which it would be the command responsible for these types of operations inside the United States. They've been very much dictating how the National Guard is going to operate. And I think what the U.S. Northern Command is kind of doing to what you would expect is basically have the National Guard be the last line of defense, quote unquote, or just try to put them as far away as the protesters as possible, especially in a situation like that, to prevent some sort of escalation and maybe just use them as a show of force.
Do you think just 2 seconds, and I'll go to Lauren right after. Just a quick question, Stefano. Do you think it worked as a deterrent, though?
I mean, there's protesters still there, and again, I think there has been episodes of violence. I think it's important to highlight. I think protests are going to continue, and I think it's to what kind of Grant was saying, and in the situation where there are people that are doing violent actions. We've already seen arrests, but I think Grant brought up an excellent point. Is the goal is going to be, and again, this is going to fall squarely on the LAPD, maybe even the FBI and other federal, local, state law enforcement. They're going to go after them after the fact, right? And then I think the logic for that is you don't want to create this is kind of like the LAPD is very famous, for example, high-speed chases where sometimes they'll disengage because they don't want to make a situation worse and they go after the person afterwards. There's we've seen this in riots across when they happen. After the riots stop, then you see a significant law enforcement raids targeting the people that were most responsible. I mean, it would be interesting to see today. Again, it's right now in LA, it's 3 hours before Eastern Standard Time, right? So almost 12 o'clock, middle of the workday. I think we have to see this afternoon, this evening, to see if there's more protests and if riots happen, because they would generally happen later in the day. So we'll know later today if that is actually what happened.
I'd like
Lauren,
to add one point.
Go ahead, Grant, then we'll go to Lauren.
Based on what Stefano said, look, tactically speaking, having the National Guard guarding the buildings so that local law enforcement can expand their perimeter and relieving them of any command and control function for the building itself is a sound tactical idea. But it kind of buttresses my point that they could do that with civilian law enforcement officials from the federal government in order to free the local law enforcement from the interior perimeter policing required to police the actual building.
Grant, what are your thoughts on what Aldo said? Before going to Lauren, Aldo said that the local police did have orders from above not to engage. Do you think those orders were there and do you think it's a good strategy?
Yeah.
Aldo, go ahead. Do you want to expand on the question, Aldo, and then I'll go to Grant?
Yeah, I mean,
Aldo, you need to turn on your echo cancellation there, buddies.
After you finish, you can speak and then you can turn it off. You are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, Grant, what would you say to the business owners and to the, the private owners of property that are right next door, that the police are watching people tag, they're watching people shoot fireworks, break windows. I saw a parking lot kiosk that was in flames yesterday. So, like, I mean, what would you say to those people that are losing property, that, it's not violent, or that it's mostly peaceful, or that these stand down orders aren't existing? Because I agree, the LAPD might be equipped and they might be able to deal with these rioters, but they're not getting the orders to do that.
So let's talk about that. I agree that losing property is traumatic for a business owner. And I think that the city, paired with the idea that they're not going to risk the lives of police officers to try and escalate situations that could be wound down without violence, They need to pair that with some support to the business owners who suffer legitimate damage from these kind of civil disturbances, because you can replace property, but you can't replace people. And when you inflame a situation, you really raise the risk of people going from, unhappy feelings and a bad protest, but then it ends to people's lives being ruined afterwards. And I think that the whole incident with Kyle Rittenhouse and all the many, not just the people that he shot dead, but the people who were injured and have lifelong
in self-defense, by the way. In self-defense.
I didn't comment on that. I just said the mere escalated situation of it is tragic, and I'm not here to moralize about Kyle Rittenhouse for you guys, okay? One way or another. I mean, we all have our opinions of that, and you know mine, but I'm just telling you that
I also know the court's
avoiding the
opinion.
next Kyle Rittenhouse situation is the most important thing, because you can't fix dead.
Lauren, I've got a quick question for you. It's about the precedent that was set here. Newsom posted the following about what Trump did, and we're talking again about the National Guard being deployed without the consent of the state. I think it's Title 32. This is exactly what Trump wanted. He flamed defies and illegally acted to federalize the National Guard. The order he signed doesn't just apply to California. It will allow him to go into any state and do the same thing. We're suing him. Do you share that concern, Lauren?
Okay, so I remember very clearly 2020 during the BLM riots. So Trump did nothing. He sat back. He tweeted, law and order, law and order, law and order, as our cities burned to the ground, as people died. A lot of businesses were destroyed, but I remember my hometown, like it was burnt, like the city of Wilmington, Delaware, my home state, it was just completely destroyed. It was burned to the ground. He did nothing. He's not going to let that happen again. We know the end result unless we stop these riots now. He is setting an example that, hey, this is not going to spread. We're not going to start funding this and busing in people and ICE protesters across the country because it starts here. And I'm right. And I'm actually very surprised that a man, like an American man, could take such a weak position. It kind of tells me that that's how we got here in the first place. How do we get to this place where men are like, oh no, we can't stand up and defend our country? You're the reason we're in this position right now. California is almost lost. It's conquered. It's conquered territory. We're taking it back. And Donald Trump, he is doing everything he can to prevent another 2020 where our cities burn to the ground. And weakness cannot be tolerated here because we know the end result. And he's doing everything legally. They can cry. Newsom can cry, but Newsom's not doing anything about it either. You think Karen Bass is going to do something about it? You know where those orders are coming from? They're coming from her. She is the one who's in charge. She is the one in the calls. And she is the one who is directing police to do nothing. Last night, a van drove through a crowd of people and it was just driving around crazy. People are getting injured. It has to end now, and you have to show force in order to get it done.
Okay,
Brian,
you talk about little instances that happen. A van drove by crazy. Yes, things like that happen. Will you expect the mayor or the governor to run out and stop the van?
Brian, there is a comparison to the BLM riots as well.
But hold on, no, it's no comparison. Yeah, no, hold on a second, Brian. One second, I'll let you go. Yeah, let me hold on a second. First of all, we're not at that point. If we were talking about a city burning, if we were talking about a governor asking for, we're talking about 400 people that were out there protesting. Let's call a spade. Let's call. Because
it's so small. If it's as small as you're making it sound like, Lev, why isn't it under control? Answer that question.
Because I'll tell first of all,
no, it's not under control. Aldo just told us that it's unusable down there.
No, it's
not
a small part.
Right, guys. So we'll go. Let Brian. I'll get your. Can I ask? You'll agree with Lev.
Yeah. So the thing
that I'll let Brian respond, then Grant, I'll let you ask.
Yeah. The thing that's important to understand here is I just listened to someone claim that the city of Wilmington, Delaware was burnt to the ground. An American city has not been burnt to the ground since the U.S. Civil War. Okay, so nothing's been burnt to the ground. Nothing's been burnt to the ground as a whole city. LA is not in ruins. And so I don't know, either you need to check your eyes or maybe you're not telling us the truth, because there's no way a whole American city was burnt to the ground. Portland wasn't burnt to the ground. Okay, Kenosha wasn't burnt to the ground. There were fires.
You're acting like this whole thing is a picnic,
I don't know why I'm
Brian.
being
It's not a
interrupted.
picnic.
I don't know why I'm being interrupted
because you're spewing garbage, dude.
No, you're spewing garbage because you're claiming.
Why don't you guys talk about what the reality is? This is not about LA. This is not about LA. This is about June 14th. This is about June 14th.
week.
I'll let you finish. And we'll get Lauren and Sean to reply. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, so it doesn't matter what's going on the ground. Okay, what matters is what is the narrative that people are crafting, because Trump claimed before the guard had even arrived that the guard had arrived and was doing stuff. He tweeted it out, checked the time. They hadn't even started arriving. Number one. Number two, they arrived in the middle of the afternoon when things were calm. So when they arrived, they didn't have any immediate impact other than to become focus of attention themselves. Okay, so what matters is people like Nick Swart who are running around the worst possible spot where there's the most violence and ignoring the fact that the vast majority of the rest of the city isn't not only not completely covered in graffiti, that the rest of the city is calm. And this is a few isolated areas. It's by
You've got echo.
and on the overpass.
Brian, but the goal, I'll let Aldo reply, but
and a few other isolated things. Now at night, at night it was very different. Non-protesters, hoodlums, and outside agitators and local troublemakers who weren't protesting anything. They were wearing masks and they came out to destroy and vandalize and start shit. Okay, those were not the people protesting ICE during the day. Those are different groups of people.
Aldo, go ahead.
First of all, it was worse during the day and many times. On Saturday in Paramount, the daytime, there were people getting shot with rubber bullets. There were people,
I was talking about Sunday.
Bricks, throwing. Oh, okay. On Sunday too. Yesterday during the day was some of the worst times. Oh,
when the guard arrived or after?
After. So I didn't see personally any guard, but around 1 o'clock outside the VA building, the police set up a perimeter and thousands of people surrounded them, obstructed their vehicles, started throwing items at them, broke and destroyed.
I saw it live, and in a few hours it was dispersed.
Brian, let him finish, Brian.
Sorry. They dispersed to a different part. So when you're saying, oh, it's these little pockets, they're moving around. And again, it was all around the city. The Waymo, they moved over to the Waymo.
It was not all around.
So they went from the federal building. I was on the ground. I was following them the entire time.
I can see
it started at City Hall.
Left the federal building, but that was the rationale for sending in the
then it went to the federal
building.
Then it went over to the Waymo cars. Then it spilled onto the traffic. Then it went into the adjacent streets. The entire time they were tagging everything.
Brian, last time. Aldo, 2 seconds. I'm just going to ask, and Aldo, I want to ask you more questions. And considering you're on the ground, and we keep muting you because you got echo, that's why. Considering you're on the ground, I want to talk to you after this as well because we want to do more on the ground coverage. So hit me up in the DMs. I'd love to chat to you, Aldo.
Can I ask
Stefano, just a quick question. Yeah, Grant, I remember you wanted to ask him a question. Yeah. Just a question to Stefano first. You know, I interviewed Mile yesterday, who's known to crack down hard whenever there's protests or roadblocks. Bukele in El Salvador did the same, and the results speak for themselves. Stefano, do you think the deployment of the National Guard was it harmful in any way? If you crack down early on these protests to avoid the next BLM, could that backfire in some way? Or was it the right strategy in making sure they don't get inflamed?
But I'm just going to go back. The National Guard hasn't really done anything as of right now. Okay, they went to the buildings to secure the buildings. Now, let me make this clear. I know Governor Newsom is sued. I don't see how the court is going to side with the governor. President Trump is the commander-in-chief. Biden, if he wanted to federalize the Texas National Guard to stop Operation Lone Star, it's well within his constitutional powers. He is the commander-in-chief. So President Trump can call upon the National Guard whenever he sees fit, end of story, and he's going to do it and he sends it. But they're not doing crowd control, right? And so they're doing federal security in these buildings that for most parts are pretty well secure already. And so I just don't necessarily see that everybody's focusing on this National Guard piece. I know that, you know, where you're going to go at with that, but I mean, let's just make it clear that on the situation on the ground with the protests and the riots that happened, that more falls within the LAPD and local law enforcement. And I 100% agree with that. Now, again, this is how I would look at it, right? And because as Mario, you said, you know, there's sometimes, you know, we've seen instances where, you know, you try to do mass force and then protests continue, escalate, shift. We see, I mean, there's many cases in American history and world history where not necessarily a hard approach is always the right approach. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And I would just do this as Quarterback Monday. Like, yeah, it's great now and we can look at it, but I think it's somewhat to what Grant said. Like, it's very hard to analyze that. I don't want to question the guys on the ground and those police commanders making decisions. Now, to Aldo's point, there might have been a directive from higher to say, hey, don't go further or don't try to escalate the situation. Now, it could have been because there was a concern that if the police took a more escalatory position. Something else could have happened. Maybe there was going to be more now kinetic violence. It's really hard to say unless there's a full-on investigation with the results that comes in later on. But in the end of the day, these are police officers, local law enforcement on the ground trying to make decisions in chaos, because let's be real, riots are chaotic. That's the nature of it. And they're trying to make a best decision of, as Aldo said, hey, we got to protect property. These are people's livelihood. And Grant's also said, we don't want loss of life. And you have to square both, because maybe there's a situation where you stop the riots, but 3 people died. Is that then just because the riot stopped, then is that a win? But now there's multiple people that are killed. I wouldn't make that decision. So again, people are on the ground. This is right now, everything is showing this is people, the local police departments are leading this. And the problem that I would say that President Trump ran into by doing Title 10 and activating the National Guard, it limited the ability of the National Guard to really respond more than that, unless it's just perimeter security in a federal installation.
But
you're not
that's
going to
not what
see
he
now.
wanted them for, Stefano. That's the whole thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the problem. He didn't want them to. There's no reason for the National Guard to come interfere there. He wanted them. This is a pretense for June 14th. He knows June 14th is there's going to be major marches all around the country. He came out and told you guys. Nobody just wants to listen.
But Title 10, the problem with that, Lev, here's the problem. Again, it goes back to the law of posse comitatus. But by President Trump invoking and federalizing the National Guard, now you can make a criticism that Governor Newsom should have activated the National Guard under Title 32, which is state, because at that point, yes, you would see National Guard soldiers in the street doing riot control, even detaining people because they're under the governor's authority. But the moment President Trump, and Mario, this goes to your question, the problem is they're now stuck in the federal building. So they can only operate in areas that are considered federal property, like these federal court, like the VA, right? For example, maybe a federal courthouse, an ICE detention facility. If a rioter decides to burn a business across the street from the VA, the National Guard, because they're Title 10, legally cannot stop them. They would have to just watch. And I think this is what
can I make a larger point to that? Can I make a larger point?
But doesn't that limit
what's driving me crazy? What's driving me crazy about this is that the only reason a National Guard would be called in is if there's something like desegregation and there's just no movement on the local authorities, or the local authorities are overwhelmed because it's like the 92 riots in LA and they have to call people in. We were nowhere near that. And the act of sending the National Guard in and just announcing it. Announcing it.
Brian, you're mixing up two, but you're mixing up two.
You're missing, but no, I'm almost done.
Not only that, the Marines. They want to send the Marines in. The Marines are ready to go in. The Marines are ready to go in, guys. What are you talking about?
Hold on a sec. Stefano was, and I love you. You know I love you. But Stefano was saying earlier there was a missed opportunity by Gavin Newsom too. No, the missed opportunity was having ICE operate normally, with people showing their badges and insignia, not showing up at courthouses for people who are legally here and are getting updates on their status, and kidnapping them basically, even though they're legal status, having ICE show up in courthouses and in schools and in places of work like this, when there are a lot of other ways to do this to be less disruptive and less inflammatory to communities. Because I care about my neighbors.
Sean, let me reply.
You're abusing my neighbor's family if you're throwing a wife on the ground. That's not how.
Let me get Stefano. Let me reply, and then we'll go to Sean. Yeah, and then we'll get Sean's take on everything. Go ahead, Stefano.
So again, but Mario, I think this is true, so our listeners can understand, because so there's, again, this goes back to in for the military, it's called authorities and legal ways of operating and based on one title. Because the Insurrection Act was not invoked, Mario, to answer this question, if I'm in Title 10, federalized by President Trump, and I am dictated to protect an ICE facility, if 2 blocks away from me, I'm seeing rioters burn down a business, I am legally, I cannot, as a federalized Title 10 National Guard soldier, go over there and stop it. You are not legally, that falls within.
So it's a waste of provocation.
Wait, guys. But all Trump has to do is say there's an insurrection, which he already said that he's floating about doing.
He would have to invoke the Insurrection Act before
correct.
So the legal authorities.
Right. So just think about it. So if he sends the National Guard in all over the country, and then he does the insurrection law, all of a sudden now you got the National Guard attacking citizens. Simple as that.
So
let me get Sean's take and Lauren's take on this as well. Sean, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's my take hasn't really changed. I've listened to a lot of, a lot of coverage, a lot of opinions about this, right? So, what I'm getting from Stefano is that since the National Guard was brought in under Title 10, they're not allowed to conduct law enforcement activities, which means there's no possible way they could be inflaming things the way the left wants to tell you that they're inflaming things. They're not allowed to, right? So they're not inflaming anything. They're securing federal buildings. Okay, so that narrative is now out the window. Narrative number two, Brian. I mean, how many times are you going to do this, right? How many times are you going to do this? Okay. I mean, I know it's probably within your nature. Brian, you're not just asking me. You're interrupted. Just be quiet. Okay. It's not that hard. Just mute up. Thank you. The second narrative that I want to, or question that I want answered that no one has seemed to answer was because I'm hearing both things, right? We're having cake and we're eating it. Okay, number one, it's not that many people. It's only 400 people when Aldo told us it was thousands of people. So if it's so small, how come the police weren't able to get it under control on Friday night? Because they weren't able to get it under control on Friday night because on Saturday it happened again. Okay, and the National Guard has only been there since Sunday, right? So if it's a small amount of people, why can't the police get it under control? Or is it so many people that the police can't get it under control? We either are dealing with a very large protest that is unruly and they can't control, or a very small protest that should have been controlled and dispersed days ago but wasn't dispersed. We can't say both things. Both can't be true at once. Okay, so what we know from what Stefano told us is that the National Guard is not inflaming anything because the National Guard is not allowed to conduct law enforcement activities. False. The Los Angeles Police Department has told us right now, the Los Angeles Police Department in a press release a couple of days ago said that the demonstrations remain peaceful. They didn't. When you light cars on fire, that's not peaceful. Okay. Number three is the riots are still going on. They went on last night. They're expected to go on again tonight. And now they're popping up in all 50 states. But if we're going to keep this conversation isolated to what's happening in California, why is there no control over the situation?
What you just did, Sean, look what you just did. You said that they're now planning to be in all 50 states. No, we're planning to protest. We're planning. There you go. You just start right there. Well, what's planning to happen on June 14th? It's protests. Protests. No kings. Protests. Legal, normal, peaceful.
And what happens after every time? Lev, every time, what happens after those protests?
It's not a debate. A simple factual question. Aldo, how many square miles or what radius is all this happening in? Is it all happening within a 1 mile radius, 1.5 mile radius of one building in all of Los Angeles?
It's probably a few miles.
Aldo reply and we'll go to Lauren. Go ahead, Aldo.
It's probably a few miles radius. I mean, I saw some tweets saying, most people in LA were having a normal Sunday, which is absolutely true. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there were thousands upon thousands of people in downtown LA in a multiple mile radius that were doing
more like just thousands.
Okay, but the bottom line is here: the city of Los Angeles is not lit on fire. It's just a small disturbance in a small area, and the other 9 million people that live in the county are going about their lives, correct? Besides that 1,000 people that are involved in this.
You're muted again, Aldo, just because you had a hot mic with an echo. You're muted again, Aldo.
That's partly. That's partly true. I mean, if you look at Paramount, so that was, 20 miles away from downtown. They did a lot of damage down there. So again, I mean, it's partly true, but I feel like when you're saying that, the whole city's not burning. It's like, of course, the whole city's not burning. Of course, there's not a nuke on LA. But you're trying to downplay the rioting and the
Los Angeles 30 years ago, for example. 30 years ago, when Rodney King was beat up, there was violence across the entire city. That is the kind of circumstance for which you call the National Guard. What we have here today is Donald Trump using his Sharpie to draw a circle around Los Angeles and say, there's a disturbance here. This city is on fire. I need to send in the National Guard. And why is it inflammatory? It's a literal show of force. You're sending in soldiers with large guns. They don't arrive.
Not only that, Grant. I just want to ask something. Not only that,
can
somebody else answer me? Also, Aldo, please answer me. We keep listening.
I'll let Lauren answer.
Why? What about Lauren or you, Lauren? Somebody, Sean, tell me. Why the Marines? Why is Pete Hegseth running around?
The Marines aren't there. What? They're not there.
No, but
they're prepping them to go.
But they're announcing.
Oh no, they're prepared. The military's prepared. No, what are we going to do?
No, but why? Why is
Pete Hegseth? This is my favorite.
Let me get Lauren. So, you've asked the question. Go ahead, Sean and Lauren. Lauren, go first, please. Unmute.
I'll be short just because I feel bad. Lauren hasn't been able to speak.
Grant, we'll let Lauren speak right after. Go ahead, Lauren.
The problem that I'm hearing sorry, the problem that I'm hearing right now is well, it's not as much violence as 1992, so you're characterizing it wrong. The fact of the matter is there is violence. Excuse me. The fact of the matter is, Grant,
Okay.
shh, quiet. Okay.
The difference between this and
Go ahead,
any other protest that we're talking about, these people are foreigners. They're waving foreign flags.
They're Los Angelinos. What are you talking about?
Not have a right.
They're mostly local.
This guy.
There's some foreigners.
Brian, let Lauren finish, please.
Those are Americans. I'm sorry. Those are my countrymen. Don't do that.
They have to go back.
The First Amendment applies to everybody inside the United States.
They are not Americans. They are foreigners. They all have to go back.
That's what makes America a fabulous place.
Even the
Mexicans all have constitutional rights because of this lovely flag behind me. Thank you.
How do you know it's mostly foreigners, Lauren? What facts do you have that support your claim that you made?
It's
not a statement. It's
I guarantee you those people are illegal and they're there protesting because they're starting the deportation.
Everybody, this is her credibility. She guarantees it. So when it's not true,
no, we've seen. So Brian, we have seen all the threads, the Spanish language threads that are going online. We've seen the photos going viral. The Mexican flag on top of a burning car.
Yes,
I understand could be Americans, but you understand where the concerns are that these are, we look at protests within the US. You've got the Mexican president commenting on it. You've got all the threads that are in Spanish. You've got the Mexican flag over burnt cars. I understand the First Amendment right. A lot of Americans speak Spanish as well, but you also can see where Lauren's concern comes from.
Well, no, here's what I will concede. Because it was the nature of her characterization. It's the difference between saying there was a riot in Wilmington, Delaware, and some property damage. She said the city was burned to the ground. This is blatant exaggeration. I'm not saying Aldo's doing that. I don't think he is. But Lauren's position, whether she realizes or not, is a blatant exaggeration.
There were
fires. You got these people running all over the city like Nick Sortor, who are going wherever it's worse. And this is what was awful on the first night. The major television news networks were all on the break with their weekend programming. So all we had was these people running around making all these claims on X and other stuff. Now, today, the last few days, when you've seen the zoomed out view with the helicopters, you can see this is only happening in a few areas. And sometimes it gets pretty violent with a few people in one or two areas. And it got out of control last night after hours. Absolutely. And anyone doing property damage, assaulting officers, any of that should be arrested. But I need to go to U.S. history really quick before I land my plane here, because people said that if the military isn't doing anything to enforce law, it cannot be a provocation. I'll remind you, and I don't agree with the South. The South seceded just based on Lincoln's election, and they were outraged just based on the call-up of volunteers before any Union Army had went into the South as part of Lincoln's call-up of volunteers. So just anybody can get upset with the military coming to their community, whether it's legitimate or not. Lots of people don't know what's going on. In the case of the South, they were wrong. In the case here, where the military is showing up unprovoked, really, this is not a necessary situation for a military action. This is not some giant revolt. This is not an insurrection. You have some people that local law enforcement can handle as well as they can, because LAPD kind of sucks. All right, so they're not very good at this. Let's just be honest. They screwed up. They could have done better. All right. But this is not the way.
Brian, I'll let Lauren respond. Also, Lauren, before you jump off, I also want to get your take on Tom's comments. So Tom hinted that Newsom might have crossed the line in harboring and concealing an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement doing their job. Newsom replied, he's a tough guy. Why doesn't he do that? He knows where to find me in terms of getting him arrested. Why doesn't he arrest me? And then Trump was asked what he thinks about Newsom daring Tom to arrest him. And Trump said, I would do it. In terms of arresting Newsom, if I were Tom, I think it's great. Gavin likes publicity. Your thoughts on that comment? Because one way it could be a humorous comment, it could be inflamed. In another comment would be like, is he serious about this? He's trying to inflame the situation. This is a sitting president. Your take on that, Lauren?
I think that they are taking this situation very seriously because of what happened in 2020. They're not allowing it to happen again. Anybody who collaborates with these illegal aliens, whoever breaks the law, like they're arresting judges. They're arresting judges who are harboring illegal aliens. Nobody is, as the Democrats, as Biden always says, nobody is above the law. What if we actually start enforcing that? And it's looking like maybe possibly we finally might get it. And if we're talking about exaggerations, Brian, we can talk about how everybody's saying, oh, ICE is the Gestapo. Oh my gosh, they're tyrants. They're doing their jobs. They're
I didn't say that.
Brian, please.
Back. And,
Yep.
you know, we shouldn't have to deal with riots and fighting when we're just upholding the rule of law in this country.
So, Mario, can I just jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Presidential vote.
Gone too
Yeah,
far.
Stefano, on that comment, we've never had as far as I know, U.S. president getting a governor arrested. I don't think these comments were serious.
I mean, Tom
Actually,
is
Mario, they were
the
very
governor of
serious.
Alabama,
Very
the
serious.
last
Okay, I mean,
governor
again,
arrested under
Tom
his
is
protest
he's the
about 20
border
years
czar.
ago.
He's in an executive position. He has no prosecution legal authority to do that. That would fall under the Department of Justice with Pam Bondi, and then that would also fall within the courthouses and along the federal courthouses all around California, and those takes time and et cetera. And so again, they said the same about AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That never came to fruition. And again, it's one thing to say something and then another thing to actually happen. Look, what I would highlight, and I think it's important to say again, is I think how Sean laid it out in a way and it goes back to this issue of the National Guard, right? And I think Sean highlighted it because it's true. Again, I'm just going to go back to that issue of Title X and law enforcement. So then the question is, where then I think the disagreement is happening, and I think Lev is kind of alluding to this a little bit, was this more to kind of give an image of toughness for the media, showing the National Guard, sending them out there, doing it. Now, again, remember in 2020, during the riots, National Guard were called upon.
Stefano, I think you've cut off. Not sure if anyone else could hear you. Lev, just back on those comments that were made while Stefano cuts out. Just those comments that were made. Do you think Trump is serious? And I understand your stance on Trump. You're not a big fan, but we know Trump's personality.
But Mary, but we've been doing it for a long time. And one thing about me is, everybody understands me and Trump have our personal issues, but I always bring the facts. And when Trump, there's plenty of times where I, agreed with certain things Trump did. Like, for instance, I'm not against getting rid of criminals and people that are here doing bad things, rapists, murders, but there's a right way and a wrong way of doing it. That's the problem. And I think majority of the country wants to get rid of the rapists and the killers. But when you start taking away our due process, when you start taking away our rights by using those, and this is what Trump is doing. Same thing here in LA. Same thing. I mean, he's definitely serious about arresting Gavin, and he's not joking about this type of stuff. This is the way Trump does stuff. No, I haven't spoken to him personally.
When's the last time Donald Trump arrested a governor, Lev? When's the last time he's ever done it?
How about when's the last time we talked about it?
He's the most hyperbolic president in the history of our country.
You asked me a question. When was the last time a president invoked what he did just now with the Guard? He's doing a lot of things that other presidents have done. When was the last time a president embarrassed all our other allies
that's
sitting in the Oval? That's not subjective. I mean, listen.
What's the last time the president took $1 million from someone and then pardoned
or a Qatari plane, when's the last time?
Maybe Hunter Biden, maybe 2024.
When was the last time a U.S. president?
Just to say, let me get Sean's. Let me get Sean's. There's a lot of firsts, but Sean, I'm guessing you don't take these comments too seriously.
No, I don't take them seriously. First of all, for everybody, okay. But they're all facts. Okay, right. So now when Donald Trump is Grant. Donald Trump is
Republican except for George Santos.
Grant.
That was a congressman who got convicted of corruption. Every corrupt Republican congressman this century has gotten a pardon from Donald Trump except for George Santos.
Okay, and George Santos is not going to get a pardon, so that's fine. Okay, I don't know why you're bringing up George Santos.
So 1 out of 15 is a good batting average for
president. I don't know why that means Donald Trump is going to. I don't know why that means Donald Trump is going to arrest Gavin Newsom.
What
He's
about
not.
law and order?
Okay?
I thought law and order. Nobody being
Grant,
above the law, Laura.
Grant, where are you going with this conversation, Grant? Grant,
Trump's acting like a king. That's where we're going. He wants to be a king.
He's acting like a king. He's acting like a king. Okay.
He said we can't use massive protests. What legal basis is there?
Oh my gosh, she can't use massive protests. Oh my goodness.
No, I'm just saying.
Now you can wear masks. You also you can wear masks. Now you can wear masks all of a sudden.
So mandating masks is okay, but banning them isn't. I mean, come on, guys. Where are we, right? Come on. We have fallen off the rails because I was going to answer a question, and Grant, you went off into left field.
Sean, I'll let you go back to answer the question, and then Aldo, I want to ask you about the masks afterwards as well, if that would make a difference if you ban masks during those protests. Sean, I'll let you finish what you're saying earlier.
Question Mario
you're
you
muted
asked
again.
me
Yeah, go ahead.
was yeah, the question Mario you
Does he
asked
think
me
Trump
was
was
I don't take
serious?
the comments seriously, right? For you know, I happen to do a little thing online where I impersonate Donald Trump, so I watch a lot of Donald Trump. Okay, he is the most hyperbolic president in the history of our country. Okay, he speaks hyperbolically about everything. When he talks about arresting Gavin Newsom, I don't believe he's actually talking about arresting Gavin Newsom. He's actually serious about it. Just like how everybody lost their mind when he started talking about Trump 2028. And then he came out a couple of weeks later and said, no, I actually haven't given any thought to it. We're not going to do it. Right. So
And
you
then
have
he
to
contradicts
understand
himself
that.
That's it. And that gives
there
you the
go.
proof. And that gives you
But
the
you're
proof
not,
because he came
the
out
proof,
and said it.
Lev, the proof, Lev, if Lev, the proof,
What
if
was
you
he
could
lying?
ever let
What was he
anyone
lying?
finish a
But wait a
point.
second. But wait a second. What was he lying, Sean?
Lev,
Was he
there's
lying
enough
when he
hot
said
air
he's
coming
going
out of
to
your
run?
mouth right now that we
Listen,
could have a
Sean,
hurricane out there,
Sean,
Lev.
the problem
If
is
you would
Donald
ever
Trump said
allow
something
Go ahead,
anyone
once,
guys,
to
not a
guys,
good
guys,
argument.
guys,
The
Right,
problem
right.
is,
There you
Sean,
go.
no.
Let him
I
Answer
feel
my
like I'm a
question.
man
One
on a.
second, 1 second. No, but Sean, answer one question. It's very simple. You said he made two statements right now. When
Are
was
you
he
going to
lying?
let me
Was
answer
he
the
lying?
question, or
Answer. Go ahead.
are you going
No,
to,
go ahead,
Sean.
or are
answer
you
it.
going to?
Answer.
Sean,
Go ahead, answer.
guys, let's not
When was
interrupt.
he
We'll go to
lying?
Aldo afterwards.
Yeah, when was he lying? Was he lying when he
He
said that
wasn't
he
lying.
is
It's
going to
called
go?
a joke, Lev. Lev, it's
Oh,
called
oh,
a
so-
joke. Have you ever
so
had a
the
joke?
president- So he's
It's always
joking
a
about
joke.
arresting
He's
the
not
governor.
Aldo,
He showed us.
Lev,
Aldo,
Lev, you know joke very well. Every day you look in the mirror, you see
March
one,
to the
okay?
Capitol. He was
guys,
just
let me
kidding.
go to
He was
Aldo.
just
I want to go to another
Sean,
quick
you're-
topic.
you're-
Aldo, Trump did say
Your
regarding
ass
the
is
masks.
jealous
He
of the
said
shit that comes out of your mouth,
masks. Guys. All right. So Aldo, Trump did say masks will not be allowed to be worn at protests. I don't know if he's got the legal authority to ban the masks. But my first question: would
Trump
that
just
help?
hates them. He hates masks.
I think absolutely it would help. As a journalist, I try to not conceal my identity at all when I'm out reporting. The first night on Friday, I was surrounded. I had my full face out. I had a name tag on, and I was surrounded by a mob of people that ended up assaulting me, stole a couple items from me, and tried assaulting me. And over the next couple days, on Saturday and Sunday, the amount of people wearing masks, the presence of what I believe to be Antifa seemed to
Aldo,
increase.
are you okay with then ICE doing that? ICE wearing masks, no identification. How do you know they weren't ICE attacking you? ICE wears the same masks, no identification.
Yeah, so
How do you know it's ICE?
Aldo, guys. Let's ask the question. Aldo, I'll let you respond.
So I think that was Lev talking. Mario asked me if he thinks it would help. I'm answering that question. I'm not saying who's.
What about on the question? So what about the point there? And I think Sean, that triggered you as well. Having ICE wear masks, but protesters not being allowed to wear masks. Should all of them not wear masks? Should both of them be allowed to wear masks?
No, I'll actually answer this, and I think I'm going to get everybody's agreement on this. I don't think masks should be banned. I don't think they should be mandated. I think it should be up to the person going out. If they'd like to conceal their identity, it's their right to conceal their identity. I don't agree with banning. I don't like bans at all. Right. I'm like, when it comes down to one of those, issues, should we ban TikTok? Should we ban this? I'm like, well, stop banning things, right? Let us decide what we want to do. So that's where I am on that. And I have no problem saying I disagree with the president saying masks should be banned. First of all, you're gonna have to pass a law. Second of all, I think that is. Thank you, Sean. I think that is something that would violate our First Amendment rights. Now, I also, however, agree with Aldo in that the mask does, and this is why ICE wears them for everyone who wants to act like they don't understand, right? The mask works as a way to conceal your identity. And we've already seen Hakeem Jeffries come out and say, if you're a member of ICE and you're conducting these raids, you will be identified. Now that's called doxing. These people, as we've seen with Supreme Court justices, we've seen as people have shown up at Supreme Court justices' houses to provoke violence, right? So I understand why ICE is doing it. ICE is doing it to conceal their identity, just like some protesters don't want to be identified as well. And I support everybody's right to wear the mask.
Yeah. Can I explain?
Guys, 2 seconds. Guys, let me get Grant. Grant, go ahead.
Look, public officials have no expectation of privacy. Okay, that's part of the trade-off of working for the government, right? Government employees have less expectation of privacy, and when they're performing their jobs, they have zero expectation of privacy. Off their jobs, they may have some claim to a certain level of privacy, and there's some laws like that give privacy rights to different people in government positions. But let's be clear here.
especially police officers type.
Any government official carrying out their official duties in public, in front of a member of the public, has zero expectation of privacy.
You have to identify
There's no law
yourself.
prohibiting that. There's
Sean,
no
you
law.
have to
There's no law
identify
prohibiting that.
yourself.
means
Sean,
they
you
all
have
want
to-
accountability.
We're just gonna play a quick clip, guys. We're gonna play a quick clip here on the ground of a protester giving a speech. To get your thoughts.
Of due process, don't get it wrong. They are trying to tell us that we do not belong here. But do we belong here? Do we belong here? So I'm here to tell you our demands. Stop the raids. We want due process. Stop racial profiling. We want the right to peacefully protest. And we want our people released, including our brother, David Huerta. Release David Huerta. Release David Huerta. Release David Huerta.
So guys, Sean, I'll get your. So Sean, I'll get your quick comments on this as we wrap up.
The key word there,
for their right to
Mario,
due
is
process.
due process.
Right.
Due process, the key
Due
word.
process
Mario.
is one key with they want their
Yeah,
brothers
that's what our
released.
society is
And
built on.
then and also said they want the right to peacefully protest. And would love to get your take on these 3 points, Sean.
Well, you have the right to peacefully protest, but the minute you step into the roadway and you start obstructing traffic, you're no longer peacefully protesting. It's no longer covered by the First Amendment. That is illegal. Okay, that is illegal. That could be prosecuted under civil disorder. That could be prosecuted under, if it becomes violent enough, rioting. Number 2, back to the mask conversation. ICE operates under Department of Homeland Security. Department of Homeland Security's own internal policies give them the right to wear masks during raids. Okay, if you want to change that, change your policies. Your opinions don't really matter when it comes to their policies. Okay, they are allowed to do it, and they do it in order to what if there is
But they have to have identification then.
Discretion.
Mask is one thing, but there has to be identification.
All right, guys,
Right,
all 3 of you, and after Sean. Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I'll let you finish your point.
Yeah, I will guard this island all day long. I have no problem, being the lone guy, standing here with the flag. It's fine. But again, when it comes to ICE wearing masks, right? When it comes to ICE wearing masks, I have
Sean,
no
can you
problem.
just do it in Donald Trump's voice? So
I'll
make a deal with you, Lev. I'll do something in Donald
Just as
Trump's
American
voice
as you are. Just as American as you are.
Okay.
All right, Brian. Thank you. You're just such a wonderful guy. Lev, I'll make a deal with you, right? I'll make a deal with you right now. I will do it in Donald Trump's voice the minute you let me finish a thought, because you can't seem to do that, right? I'll do it.
No. All right, guys, we'll let him finish, and then we'll give everyone just a final quick thoughts. Go ahead, Sean.
Right, yeah.
You're the last man standing because Lauren and Aldo had to jump off. Yeah, good troops.
That's okay. That's okay. I had no problem. I have no problem with that. I think what we're faced with right now is there are folks that are trying to justify the violence, and I don't think it should be justified. I don't think it should be rationalized. I don't want to hear sob stories. It's not about due process. You came into the country illegally. You were told you had a chance to self-deport. You were found. You were detained by ICE. You're going to have a hearing. Right, you're going to have a process. Yes, and they're protesting
arresting
literally.
Him at the hearing,
guys,
they're arresting them in the courtroom.
Guys,
Brian,
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
What, Brian? The impulse control that you lack is astounding.
They're arresting him in the courtroom. So what you're saying?
Oh
is
my
false.
gosh! Clutch your pearls
guys.
again, dude. Clutch them. Keep clutching them. I'm really enjoying poking this guy. They're protesting ICE raiding illegals who are not supposed to be in this country and putting the illegals through the process that leads to deportation. They're literally protesting due process. That's what they're doing. And now you have, and it goes Mr. Impulse Control, right? Doesn't have an off button. It's unbelievable. Now we have Kilmar Abrego Garcia, by the way, whoever wants to say his due process rights were violated, coming back here in my state, right? Now he's being charged with 2 counts of human smuggling. He had smuggled over 100 illegal aliens, 100 trips with illegal aliens in his car. He'll get his due process. Look,
hey, Sean,
why did they charge him before?
All right, guys. Let me go to Stefano. Stefano, your thoughts on this?
I just can't wait to see.
Stefano,
I think it's important to highlight.
Let me add one more question to it as well, Stefano. Do you worry this could escalate beyond LA as well? Because the issue of illegal immigrants and what ICE is doing is.
So let me. I'll address that. I think it's interesting because the Abrego Garcia chart. I think it is important that the federal prosecutor, the head of, I think it was actually the head of the criminal division, did resign because of that prosecution. Because of that charging, that the head of the criminal did resign, and in the reporting, it was because he believed that this was a politically motivated prosecution. Again, he'll have his time in court. We'll let the courts decide. He'll be tried by a jury of his peers, and I fully believe in the American court system. How imperfect it is, it's still, the best system out there, in my opinion, 100%, with all the imperfections. So I'm a firm believer of that. But I do believe it's important to highlight that. So something that's kind of Sean, and Sean, because I understand the argument, I do believe, I think the problem that we're running into is when we're talking about immigration in this country, right? I think a lot of people are just getting lumped together, right? Because I think, Sean, you're right. There are people that have been given deportation orders like, hey, you gotta go, and they just stay and stay and stay. Some of them without a criminal conviction, some of them with a criminal conviction. And for whatever reasons, either sanctuary cities or something else or whatever it may be, they've kind of fallen through the cracks. And now we have, in this administration, we are prioritizing to try to get them and deport them. The problem you're running into, and this is kind of what a lot of people are protesting about, is that a lot of people who crossed the border into the United States are being lumped in this situation as being illegal immigrants, when, as Brian was highlighting, I think this is the kind of the problem, is requesting asylum in the United States to this day is a legal way of entering into the country. A lot of people might blast it. A lot of people, I can understand the argument of people saying, well, you skipped the line, because you have people saying, I went to an embassy, I've submitted, I had to wait years and years. And I'm sympathetic to that argument, right? But requesting asylum is a legitimate way of requesting status in the United States. And the protest, what they're saying is there are people that are being tied up and caught when they're going through the asylum process or the process of trying to get a legal status. And I think what a lot of Americans, because you hear people, oh, I've been here for 10 years. It's a nightmare. Like I was fortunate enough, and just a little bit personal for me.
Sorry, let me finish. So something just came in. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Trump just posted the following. I want to get your thoughts on it from a legal perspective. If they spit, we will hit. This is a statement from the President of the United States concerning the catastrophic Gavin Newsom inspired riots going on in LA.
That's because of
the insurrectionists have a tendency to spit in the face of the National Guardsmen, women, and others. These patriots are told to accept it. It's just the way of life runs. But it's not in the Trump administration. If they spit, we will hit. And I promise you, they will hit harder than they have ever hit anyone before.
So as somebody who, I would say this. Let me put it this way, and I got it. This is what I was at the border. If a migrant came up to one of our, I wasn't in a command position at the time. I was the S2, the head of intelligence. I'm pretty certain that if our battalion commanders and the company commanders and the battalion command sergeant major and the battalion and the company first sergeants, they would tell their soldiers, no, you will not do that. If you're not going to hit back because somebody spit at you, right? Again, this is kind of where I think Sean was getting the hyperbole, and I would agree with that. Again, this is where I would say there's going to be messaging from President Trump. He masters
absolutely not. These people, if they're going to be commanders, Stefano, hold on a second, Stefano, wait a second. If there's going to be commanders that stand in the way of Donald Trump's orders, these people will be fired.
That is
they will be thrown out.
As a commissioned officer.
There's not in Donald Trump's. Stefano, I agree with you on everything.
I am telling you right now, for a fact.
The United States Code of Military Justice says
you have to. We'll let you.
Let me say, Lev, I am telling you for a fact, and anybody who has served in the U.S. military, especially commissioned officers and especially senior NCOs, non-commissioned officers, if an order is given to you and you know it is illegal, unethical, or immoral, you are obliged not to execute it, because then you can be held. If I'm a company commander and I see somebody spitting on a soldier of mine who is and they spit on him, and I give the order to the soldier to punch them, I am telling you right now.
And Stefano, you're 100% right. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Essentially, guys, so just to wrap it, just right. Stefano, question on that front, so everyone just try not to unmute. Just my last question. So you think Trump's post won't change anything on the ground in terms of rules of engagement?
Again, yeah. Dude, from the president, you're going to have Northern Command. You're going to have the National Guard.
That beats head.
You're cutting out. So guys, we're going to continue. Yeah. I wanted to give Grant and Brian a final, and Lev as well, just final word as well. But we do have to wrap. We'll continue this on Spaces. We'll probably do more of these panels. I think it was great. Sean, I appreciate you staying as well and holding your ground. It was great to have you on board. And guys, good to see you all again. And it's a pleasure. Appreciate it. And hopefully the protests calm down and we don't have to cover this again. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Mario. Absolutely.
Thanks,
I just
guys.
want to say one thing, Mario.